How big did Dakota became, and when did you have the realization of like, look, like if I'm selling this in Brazil, I want to sell this globally because no one is doing this. So let's go global from Florianopolis. When was that, and how did you start validating the internationalization of the business?
So funny thing was the scariest thing for an entrepreneur to go through. I think there's a lot of scary things that an entrepreneur can go through, but a scary thing to go through is a false positive, right? False validation, where you think you got it, but you not really. And then that's how we felt when we after Mobley, because Mobley was fast and furious. Like, hey, let's close it, big deal, boom, boom, boom. It was easy. Our next move, we already had connections with every other retailer because of the white label thing. So we're like, hey, we have this other thing that we're doing, and Mobley bought from us, but nobody else bought. And basically, you will have to be too forward thinking to care about your product imagery and the speed of how fast you start selling. Most people are like, I'm not gonna pay an extra uh, $500 per product just to actually sell it a month earlier, or to I don't care, fuck it. So most of them we didn't use the photo for photography that the Chinese guys send, which is often terrible. If you look at most e-coms that don't care about it, you find terrible imagery for products, and you're like, what am I even buying? It's a pixelated picture of something here. For furniture, it was especially a bigger deal. But most retailers here didn't care, and we were scared. Like, maybe did we find a one-off? We found something that it's not repeatable in the market. And meanwhile, we were trying to figure that out. There was this program, this government program in Brazil from my state that was bringing industries from Brazil to the US. Not tech companies, but normal companies. So, like, if you wanted to sell shoes in the US, they would help you out. Like, they would give you lawyers and accountants and space, like inventory space. A lot of everything you need to actually just go, and even a crash course, like how Florida works and what are the laws and so and so you can actually just go and sell. They were selecting 50 companies in the industries mostly, but we thought, hey, we might as well try, and we were scared to go there because it would be a big investment. Like, it's not that easy to just start selling what we wanted to sell, because it was not something we would sell online. We actually have to visit clients and demonstrate. It was a high touch sell.
Yeah. What was the typical contract size for a product from you guys?
We were going for at least $500,000. That was the goal. Some were smaller, some were much bigger, but that was the average that we were going for. So it was a fairly big deal, especially from Brazil. For the US, it was a medium-sized deal, I guess, depending on who you're talking to. I'm gonna get to this what I want to say, but basically when we got through this program, and then we were the only tech company out of 50, and then we were also the only survivor 2 years later. Everybody else either went bankrupt or went back to Brazil. We were the sole survivor out of 50 companies that went there. It was unfortunate. It was bittersweet for them because it was a very expensive program, like bringing 50 companies to the US, and they were bringing a lot of value, like lawyers, accountants, teachers to actually explain the laws in the state. There was a lot. We learned a lot, and but it failed, and then it also succeeded. It was bittersweet, right? 49 failed, but the only one that survived was a really big deal for the States. So it was like, okay, how well did we do in the end? Like, what would define success? But we went through this and we started selling there, and then we made a slight adjustment on pricing. Instead of if a project, let's say, if something would cost 100 reais, we would start charging the same thing $100 just to see if it would stick, and then try to keep our costs in reais and try to make the revenue mostly in dollar. And what we would find was that companies really wanted this here in the US. Like, they were more like mobile, they were more entrepreneurial, they cared about the quality of products. They were competing with Amazon, which at the moment didn't care that much of how good the imagery looked. It cared more about being fast and like service, so delivering fast and being the lower price. And everybody else was competing in the other arenas because they could not beat them on those two. So they wanted to be better shopping experience, like better imagery, maybe videos, maybe inspiring the consumer to actually want to buy there. So we start very humbly. What we did, we're like, we need to find these people. We don't know anybody in the U.S. to introduce us, and we don't want to be the Brazilian weirdo that like doesn't know how to do business in the U.S. Right? We don't want to burn bridges early on. So we went to trade shows, all the big ones like NRF, ICE, all the big ones in retail and technology, furniture, and so on. And we would have pamphlets, straight to God, and then we would just observe how people were selling, and observing the names and the companies, and actually trying to bump into something. And we bumped into a lot of people. That's where the people went to actually do business. They actually work a lot here in the U.S., a lot more than in Brazil, the way I see it. They do work in Brazil.
Yeah, I love that. I remember the first time also when I was that I got in touch with like the way of doing business in America, and I was like, wow, this is way more efficient. And it doesn't mean if I actually put a little bit of effort and work hard, I get rewarded. People want to actually do better and they try very hard. It's not the case, like you have great people in Brazil as well, but the average American is educated in a completely different way. And so I love that story about you just, hey, I'm gonna hustle through.
You know, it's never great. Like, rarely great. In Brazil, it's often great. Like, I want it, but maybe I don't know. You know, in US, like, this is really cool.
Yeah, and Brazilians have a problem. It's one of the aspects that annoy me about Brazilians is that we don't know how to say no. Exactly. What the fuck? It's the most annoying thing. It's totally okay. Whereas in the US, you get rejected fast.
Fastly, it's very efficient, and you often know why. Like, no, because it's too expensive. Okay, thanks for the information. I'll be cheaper next time for the next guy, and then that's how it went.
Exactly.
At least I got that out of you. And Brazilians would never say, no, maybe it's not the time. Maybe next year. They would never sell it too expensive, or unless it's offensive expensive, but rarely. And then, anyway, we got in touch with many relevant dealers, retailers in the U.S., and we started selling projects to our first clients were kind of like Lowe's, Home Depot. All of them we've met in either like trying to find them actively, which is interesting. Like we would figure out that someone that we wanted to get in touch would be in that place. Then we would try to figure out where they would go and what would their routine be, and checking their Twitter feeds and their LinkedIn, like what are you doing, to actually figure out how to meet them, and trying to do the email, the LinkedIn.
It's professional stalking, tactical. It's funny. I wonder what's going to happen after the pandemic, how these trade shows are going to work. If we're gonna go back into like something else, but like it's just but right, like that takes a whole nother level. It's a combination. So I think it's so beautiful. I think it's a combination of like suspending disbelief with like irrational determination, and you're like, I'm just gonna go to the conference, I'm gonna print a few papers, and I know who I'm supposed to talk to, so you prepare, but you're like, I'm gonna professionally stalk and put in front of them a bunch of coincidences.
Account-based marketing, that's what we call it. It's nicer than that.
Oh yeah, now there's a term for professional B2B stalking called account-based marketing. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, so you don't look like a weird, person. Yes, exactly. There you go.
Hey John, who are you? I know everything about you. Hey John, who's a VP for furniture and decor within Home Depot. How are you doing? I heard you have a really big budget for investing in CGI. So anyway, we would go with our flyers, and then we started closing deals. Like people would give us a chance. Very often we thought it would be harder, but they would give us smaller projects. Sometimes we're like, hey, we would hear, I have this really big need, but I have to test you out first. So let's do maybe 10 grand, which is already big for us. And then 10, 50, 100, the projects start getting bigger. and especially with Home Depot, which was a very big partner for us very early on in the US, and other clients as well. But then one of these projects got really, really big, and then that's where we actually grew to that moment we were seeing early on for 120 people.